Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, guys. I hope all of you guys are well. All of you guys are doing amazing on this beautiful evening. We are creating the Conversation podcast. This is Imran Muhammad, your host, and of course, my main man, Mr. Ivan Humble. Oh my God, I am buzzing. I am buzzing. I'm telling you straight, my brother. Ivan, I am buzzing. Not that I had a few, not that at all, but because of the guest that we have today. What? It's wallahi. For me, I can't believe I said wallahi. I can't say it. I said wallahi. I said wallahi. You know, wallahi means oath of God. Yeah, oath of God. I can't believe it. That with the grace of God of my, I'm saying too many religious stuff here. What's going on? You know what I mean? I can't control myself. We are amazing today. The gift that we have, Ivan, my man. You know what I mean? This is a massive thing, right? To have this gentleman with us today. I'm going to introduce him in a short while. But before I do that, Ivan, how have you been? How you doing? How are things with you? How's life? How is this lockdown going, bro?
On and on. No, it's been not a bad week. I literally just got home from a support worker shift, literally 5 minutes ago, as you know, to come on. Yeah, it's been quite a sad week actually. My youngest daughter lost her granddad.
I'm
he was rushed to the hospital, and then so no, that's cool. So we had that to deal with. But apart from that, everything's ticking along.
You know what you just said there? We've had a number of deaths in our communities now, and you know my thoughts and my prayers are with you and with your daughter as well. You know what I'm saying? So may God give us strength in this very difficult time. And I think this is the thing. Sadly, this sad news that we get unites us as a human being, as a community. There are people in our communities, there are people in your communities, and the extended community that are losing their loved ones and beloveds in this very difficult time. My man, God give you strength as well. You know what I mean? In this difficult.
And actually, man,
yeah, man.
Just to add to that a bit, I was this week and I was at work today. Do you know what I mean? This evening. Maybe, do you know what I mean? I've been doing support work 3 months now, and helping the town's most vulnerable. And to be fair, their is us. Do you know what I mean? Because of their families and nothing. So if it weren't for us, they'd be on their own. Do you know what I mean? It's so sad. So a big shout out to all support workers, carers out there. Without you, there'd be lots of people isolated. Do you know what I mean?
Big up, support workers.
Yeah, big up.
Big up, guys, and do it. Keep it up, guys. You guys are amazing. You're doing an awesome job. I know it's difficult. I know you got families as well, but brilliant, guys. Ivan, my man, today we are honored to have a great man, all right, an individual who has truly changed the whole scene in Britain generally, but of course we're talking about internationally as well. Yeah. And we are honored to have his presence, and of course we are honored to have him as someone that's dear to you, and someone who's dear to me as well, someone who's very close to you, someone you see as a friend, someone that you see as a father figure, someone that you see as that you take support from and help from. So this is someone who's very, very significant to us, guys. This is none other than I'm talking about. I did speak to him earlier on, and he said, I asked him, how should I address you? He goes, listen, I don't have this and that of accolades for myself, right? Call me Manwar, but he's a sheikh for me. He's an imam. He's a person who does the amazing work that he does in this community. He's a person who interacts and engages with people at a human level. And I want to say Ali himself, or maybe put it into his words as well, Mama Ali himself, the sheikh himself, is a Muslim scholar. He's a sheikh, he's an alim, he's a learned individual in the tradition. But as well as that, he's a person who has enhanced, it talks about the enhanced values of humanity, which I think is a very, very powerful aspect of this particular individual. So guys, there's more that we're going to share with you. We're going to talk about the work that he does, some of the work that he's established, and the work that he's done in the past, and especially how it links to my man Ivan. So none other than, I'm going to call you this, forgive me for that, Sheikh Manwar Ali Saab. Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome, sir. Welcome this evening.
Thank you.
And forgive me for saying too many accolades, because I tried my best not to say anything, which is difficult, alhamdulillah. But ahlan wa sahlan, welcome today. And
Thank
we
you.
are
Thank you
honored
very
to have
much.
you, sir. How are we doing today, sir? How are things with you? How's life at home?
Yeah, thank you very much for that glorious kind of introduction. And yeah, it is actually my pleasure and honor both to be on this program and to share the platform with you and me as I think, or me and you rather. Your program is your platform is. Ivan, of course, is a very good friend of mine, and I feel indebted to him for a number of reasons we can talk about later. And people like yourself, I admire because of my own particular background, because I think you have had formal training in learning religion, although you refer to me as a sheikh and an alim. I think good manners is important. Of course, there were those around the Prophet, peace be on him, who called him by name, Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam. But then they would tend to be the coarse Bedouin kind of unacculturated type of Arabs. So it's admissible. It is not wrong. But then, as an elder person, I'm maybe 20 years older than you, so you might feel it from a respect kind of perspective to call me brother or sheikh now and then. But I think it's very important for us to realize that although we are polite and we try to warmly welcome each other, we should know ourselves, our true natures, in terms of our place in society. And if we are religious people, then at least I know that I'm conscious of the fact that, as you know, as an imam, that God necessarily sees us and knows what's in our hearts.
Yes.
So I don't like being called sheikh and imam, but it's understandable. On the other hand, it's peculiar. I wouldn't like to be called bruv or a bro. That I feel is like being disrespectful, because especially if you're 20 years old and I'm 61, which is my age, then don't call me bro, because I've got grandchildren almost coming to your age now.
That's right.
So
That's right.
thank you for having me on your program.
No, you're welcome, Sidi, and we are honored to have you. In fact, our ethos, our value as me and you education is based upon a lot of what you talk about, what you discuss, what your journey is, and
Yes,
please, it is, and I know Ivan, my man, you know, the way when he talks about what his views and ideas are of where he's been and how he got to where he got to, there's a very significant, essential, important part of you in that. Do you understand? In that whole process, and of course, as you just said, it works both ways, not only one way.
Yeah,
And
precisely.
we're so very, very grateful. So, Sidi, let me start this off. Of course, first we have a question for Jazakallah. Thank you for joining us today, and etc. I want to start, and I want to take you back, just to share with our audience, who will also view this later on as well, about who are you and where are you from? Mananta. So what is your background in the sense of where did you come from, and a little bit about your early age of being in Bangladesh and then moving to England? If I may start the conversation like that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just stop me because I ramble. I tend to ramble and talk a lot and digress. But yeah, أنا ولدت في Bangladesh. So I was born in Bangladesh, as you know. But after about a period of time, the War of Independence happened, which resulted in the creation of Bangladesh.
In
A lot of
71.
politics. Sorry?
In 71.
In 1971, yes. A lot of politics came across my path because my father was very involved in the politics of creating Pakistan to start with during the British colonial days. And then thereafter, he kind of chose the side that opposed the creation of Bangladesh because he thought from his Islamic background, it was far too nationalistic and kind of was beholden to India. So that kind of politics. So I became affected. The 1965 war I witnessed, watching from the veranda of my flat, the dogfights and stuff like that. But in 71, massacre, breakdown, crackdown, what have you. So my background is that I grew up in turmoil. And then I came to this country in 75. And I had a good upbringing in terms of Islam, but not at depth in the normal manners of speaking, like learning 5 pillars and going to the mosque and reciting the Quran and so on. But because of the politics, sorry.
No, because it's really interesting. I asked you to start with that because as you work with individuals today,
Yes.
people who have gone down a certain pathway or gone
Yes.
to a particular lifestyle.
Yes.
And what we find is that when we look into their lives, we find the same turmoil, the same difficulties,
Or some trauma, yeah,
or some
yeah.
trauma, the underlying,
Yeah.
all right, which tends to push them or become the sense of vulnerability, one of those vulnerability which it gets them into a place where they become a victim, right?
Yeah.
And I touch
So
on
they
this.
have grievances. Yeah.
Please.
No, that's it. Yeah, as you're saying, yeah, I fully concur, and that is the point, that we have certain experiences in life which expose us to bad things, let's say, and it has an effect on our hearts or minds, especially if we are young and impressionable. And I see that also amongst non-Muslims, or the few so-called far-right people I've seen. I keep on saying so-called because ultimately people have reasons for
Yes.
turning to this or that ideology or take this or that position. So whatever the drivers and the motivational factors or the vulnerabilities, ultimately we seek to redress, somehow cope with them. Now, being Islamic, being from a political background, in fact, one of the coup that happened with the Bangladesh army plotting to overthrow Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, some of those meetings happened in my house, and I used to witness those with the army generals and colonels.
Wow.
It's not very safe to say so in public. Probably if I go back to Bangladesh, there'll be problems. But that's how I grew up. I come to this country and I hear about the Palestinian problem because Israel had invaded Lebanon. That's in 1975.
It is.
So I want to go off and fight because Islam is good. And that's the point I'm trying to bring in, that we have ideologies built with or without religion, and we have our own personal problems or idiosyncrasies.
And if I may hold you there, because on the basis of the personal problems that we have, I know Ivan, he himself as well, when he talks about his story, is very similar.
Yeah.
Ivan, when you talk about how you got into the organization of EDL, could you share a little bit about what was happening just before that?
What made me get that, or what triggered me?
Yeah. What triggered you? Your vulnerability.
It was just like, my vulnerabilities. I had loads. Do you know what I mean? I don't think there's any one specific thing. So like mental health, victim of domestic, being a single dad, benefit, living in I was going to say majority white town. That's not really a problem, but it sheltered me from meeting the other. So for me, it was quite easy to draw into the narrative, purely the misinformation. And to be fair, I say it all the time, and I do, but Ajahn Chowdhury was my problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was a Muslim guy that I saw on the news after the protests with our troops because of charity work. In 2009, he made him the go-to Muslim. So coming from my background, it was easy to think to myself that, hang on, if he's on the news, he must speak for the whole of the Muslim community in the UK.
And that is exactly what.
And of course, I'll become knowledgeable on his interpretation of Islam.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is,
it was just generally a genuine concern.
And I want to establish this because, and that's why I'm requesting the Sheikh to share this with us, because we have a tendency as a community to see an individual through their act or crime or horrific behavior. And we do this a lot. I work with a group of individuals within my nature of my work where they become stigmatized because of what the newspapers have said about them. But I get to see the human. I get to see the father. I get to see the son. I get to see the boyfriend. I get to see, the vulnerable person. I get to see the abused child. I get to see the person who's got mental health problems. You understand? I get to see that person who has internal turmoil. All right, for being whatever they were in their life, lack of finances, being in a very difficult social structure, and they turned up into this environment. Now, it's a simple way of doing. Yeah, he's a murderer, he is a robber, he is a extremist, he is this, is that, and then we lock him up and throw the key away. Metaphorically speaking, that's what's to happen. And in the same way, but when we look into people's lives, just like both of your lives, what you find is there were genuine vulnerabilities there. There were genuine things, and of course we say it's not all, it's only some, but both of your stories in a way are very similar in my eyes. And you remember, I am standing outside and looking at both of you. So Sheikh, as we have established that you traveled and you came from Bangladesh, or you were in an environment where there was genuine turmoil, there was genuine issue around partition. So that's the world that you are from. What happens to you then?
No, I don't know what happens, because every one of us have our individual kind of mental makeup or characteristics of what makes us or defines us to be a human being. But as human beings, we share a natural core of values or way of how to be an intelligent, sentient big person. I think if I can just go back slightly to what you said before we come to what happened, crimes have to be prevented, and people have to be protected. No matter what my vulnerability is and how much you want to understand me as a human being, that made me a monster. Well, as a monster, I need to be fended off or kept at bay from harming the public. So there's that duty which mustn't forget, that we have to protect. And the second thing is, once a crime has been committed, it's not all throw away the key. I mean, he said that, I know, not very seriously, but still, just in case people misunderstand, that they are given support. I mean, there's rehabilitation efforts that goes on either through Prevent, which is a contestable and a kind of divisive issue, I understand. But even in prison, some of the help that they get, from HII programs, and you as an imam, perhaps working in prisons, you would know that. So there's psychological support to all types of rehabilitation efforts. But ultimately, what happened in my case is, of course, I had to seek guidance to become a better Muslim. Now, in my nature, I was always devotional. So at the age of 11, without understanding a word of the Quran,
Right.
for example, I would try and read the entire Mus'haf, the book, in 1 week.
Wow.
This is a good thing to do. So I just did that like a parrot manner, very fast, stumbling over and not reciting properly. I finished the Quran. It's more like finishing it and then saying, I've got the reward. That's me. At the age of 12, I'm praying tahajjud. I don't do as much anymore. But can you imagine a 12-year-old kid in Bangladesh, at midnight, he's have to wait till 12 o'clock and now I'm going to pray and get up for Fajr as well. Hear the adhan, and 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm there. This is my 12, 13, 14, 15, I'm like that. It's a very religious person.
Yes.
No, the reason I said that is I'm not like that anymore. But the reason I said that is to show that a person with religious inclination or disposition
Conviction.
would seek guidance.
Yes.
And that's where the trouble started. I wanted to be religiously correct and better or more sound. And I came across ideology. So whatever my vulnerabilities and the catalysts in my life to drive me that way, ultimately religion played a fundamental role. And all I found was support for certain traditional teachings polluted or tarnished by political Islam.
Which we call Islamism.
Yes,
Islam.
and I know people don't like it. Many average, or just say, let's say, many Muslims actually misunderstand that to mean as if they're criticizing your being devotional. You pray more or you've grown your beard. No, it is political. Islam used in a political theory as an ideology for a certain solution.
And that's exactly, I think, what Ivan is also touching on, where the Islam that he came across, right? It was a political Islam, through this particular individual. And of course, that became the narrative or the lens that he saw others with this skin or brown skin or religious, conviction. So the idea of spirituality, the idea of religion being an essential part of a human being's daily development became a secondary issue, because that was not considered. Now, Sheikh, going from, because I know you, when you traveled to England, your father came here first as an individual who, of course, he was going through immense turmoil. He was going to get some support and help here, to understand. He traveled. he got an opportunity to come to this country. And a few years after that, you did as well. I want to know your transition from that country where this partition was taking place, and of course your father being on the opposite side, and then coming to this country. And how did you feel coming into a country where the culture, where the color of people, where the traditional people were different to yourselves?
Yeah, I think perhaps I'm not the best person to speak to about that, because I actually my parents brought me here when I was 6 months old, when he did his PhD and bar at law. So first 3.5 years of my time, I remember going to nursery in England. Then I went back to Bangladesh.
No,
then I came back again.
But the Sheikh, that's really significant, because if you know that about your history, and if you know about your background, that they brought me at that particular, that's a very positive thing.
It's positive. So I already had kind of like from very early young age, good impression of England, isn't it? Because at the nursery, the way teachers treated me. I remember the Christmas plays, the girl I used to sit next to, I was 4 years old or 3. I still remember her. So there are some things, bits and pieces I remember, good memories, fond memories of what I used to play, the neighborhood. Then I go back, and I come back when it's about 10, 11 years old. Mr. Nyman at Primrose Hill School, junior school, was my greatest support. And I was only 11 years old.
Right.
And he took me under his wings. I remember that. Then I went back. Then the war happened. So, and I always went to an English medium school, even in Bangladesh. So I was already versed in English. The culture was not that different. I never watched Bengali Indian films, always English programs, Bonanza and stuff like that in Bangladesh. Or Land of the Giants, in black and white.
Yeah, but the thing is that's very true of that generation as well. I remember my grandfather. If you saw him in a photo, you'll think he's an Englishman.
Okay, yes.
Three-piece suit, tie, you understand? Well dressed, well presented. That sense, that very Englishness in him, and this gentleman, as you say. And we know of this, when the Windrush generation came here. Same thing. These people had beautiful, ideas about this country. They saw England as their motherland. You understand? Now, I fully understand and acknowledge that, and I know that it was at least in the minds of both that generation, this was a very positive place. But sadly, of course, we know that they came across a particular different type of engagement or disengagement towards them. So that's what I want to come.
From schools, colleges, or other professionals, I had full support. Even my sixth form tutor at Rugby Comprehensive, for example, supported me and thought well of me and guided me. But of course, in the streets, when I first came, I lived in Plaistow, and we had the National Front. So at that age, and even before that, in 1969, I was out in the streets. I was first year in a secondary school. I was confronting Paki bashers. So a gang of us Asian youth will go out and throw bricks, bottles at each other. That's it. And then come back to school after lunch break. Have fish and chips or not. So that happened. And then, of course, when I went to Plaistow, when I was about 15, 16 years old, no, 17, National Front, throwing me beer can bottles and stuff. And I used to insist on wearing my Arabic headgear to the sixth form. But that's outside of the professional environment. Nobody mistreated me.
Now, Sheikh, let me ask this now. You insisted to wear an Arabic headdress.
It was crazy.
In a country where National Front were throwing bottles at you, Ya Sheikh, what were you doing, Ya Sheikh?
Because I was not, but that is why when people like yourself, myself and others, and Ivan, we talk to youngsters, we understand their frustration and the sense of lack of identity that they might feel, which they want to fill with something meaningful and purposeful. So they will latch onto certain grievances, certain observations, and become almost like a victim. So it's sympathy, because I wore that headgear and stuff because I wanted to look genuine and Arab and Islam and all that. But Islamically, we know it's not only incorrect, it is something counterproductive, if you understand about usulul fiqh, as you know, and the culture and custom and so on. Now, the point is, I had a lot of bad experiences, like gang fights, with knives and things and so on, and fisticuffs and direct one-to-one fist fights in East London, Whitechapel. I was beaten up by 7 skinheads at Liverpool Street. Wow. And incidentally, that's when after that, I started carrying a knife, which I don't carry on me anymore. But because I got beaten up, it's self-protection. So that somebody says self-protection, I know it's foolish. It can lead to tragedies, but I went through this. Why should I be so harsh now and be so understanding? But with love and compassion, with kind of accommodation of grievances, with some kind of nice discussion, perhaps we can see, make sense prevail. But that's it. That's it, basically.
No, that is. But now you're a person who was there, who saw this type of opposition. You kept this knife on you. We are living in another pandemic, which is of knife crime.
Yeah.
At the moment. Now we're living in times which are not that different to what you just said. Maybe
it's worse. It's worse.
Worse. Now, how would you, a person who's been there, done that, who got the aggression, who got that negativity, and you made a conscious decision to keep a knife on you, sir?
Yeah.
Why can't we accept? And this is a difficult thing, what I'm going to say. It is a difficult thing. Why can't we just accept that these young people are going through this to keep themselves, sadly, the society is not doing it, but keep themselves safe? They need to protect themselves.
Yes.
What's your view on that then?
Well, it's just a view. I mean, it's not an expert opinion. I mean, I never got into gangs because of drugs. And much of what goes on today is related to drugs, drug dealing and owing money and so on. Ivan can talk more about that, I think, has better knowledge. And also in my days, 30, 40 years ago, people had less mental health problems. Maybe modernity, the modern lifestyle, the sense of hopelessness, I don't know, relativism. So things have changed. It's worse now, but there are more protective factors around as well, or better help. So my opinion is we should be sympathetic to their excuses, but then try to reason with them and offer them support to come out of the excuses they bring or justifications they bring to be in knife crime kind of scenario, carrying a knife or using it or threatening people. But Ivan, I think, is better placed to respond to this than me.
because of his crazy background, eh? Ivan, my man.
No, more because he's with the people more.
No, I agree.
Grassroots level.
No, I agree. No, I was going to say that Ivan, I know you know the full story of this gentleman, but I just want your thought and reflection on when Manwar is mentioning about that he was walking around with knuckle dusters with a knife in his pocket. You understand, in England, all right, and the way he is and the way he held himself. How does that come across to a gentleman who is the native of this country? How does it come across to you that someone like this is doing this in this country?
Yeah, but it's not just him doing it. Lots of people are doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like you said, it's in today's society that lots of these youngsters feel the need to have to protect themselves. Do you know what I mean? I watched, funny enough, last night called County Lines, a really good film. It's a much watch to understand the grooming process, but I come up with something like children are involved in that kind of lifestyle. That's a lot of kiddies. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot of families being destroyed by this society. It's the society we live in. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I really blame everyone who's carrying on that, because sometimes it is life or death. Do you know what I mean? For some of them,
and it's
when it overspills into the public sphere. Do you know what I mean? Where we see the attacks because of social media now. Everything is highlighted or amplified 1,000 times, so we're seeing it more often where before we didn't.
Thank you, Sheikh. I want to come towards the Soviet and the Afghan war era that came into your life, right? And you were a young man in Britain at that particular time, a very strapping man, if I may say. God bless you. You were, and of course you had your own turmoils. You have your own sense, maybe a sense of identity crisis, maybe an identity crisis, maybe I don't know what you would call it yourself, but as a person who works in that sector myself, I do see that when I look back into that era around young men and women at that time as well, because Afghanistan was the focal point, right? of this country and America and other places to push these mujahids to fight against a superpower, right? To dismantle the Russian. So tell me and tell our viewers and our listeners, what was that like? And tell me and create this sense of understanding for us where you were at that particular time within yourself.
Yeah, it is a very long answer, but I'll try and keep it short, and then perhaps on other occasions much more detail will come out. But I don't think I had an identity crisis. I think the problem was I was too certain of my identity, too assured, on little knowledge.
What was that? What was that?
That I am a good Muslim and trying to be even better. I'm doing the right thing. Not only emotionally speaking, that I want to help the oppressed and the dispossessed and so forth, but in terms of my Islam, that this is the true religion, and there's widespread support. And I was too young to understand how the governments are involved in the global politics, if you like, or the real politic. So for me, it's not about really pinpointing that the Americans' interest is to draw Russians into the Afghan theater and make them suffer and bleed, and it's because of the Cold War and all that. For me, just as well, it's convenient. In the end, we are fighting for Islam and supporting the oppressed. So it was good. And when I say good, people might misunderstand me. They say, what was it like? Like is, well, from a childish, shallow point of view, it was good. It was thrilling. It was excitement. It was glamorous. It was a lot of people praising you and admiring you, and you get the sense of, like say, boys like guns. You have a sense of that as well. I've gone and I've done things, but you must understand, I was not a foot soldier. So although I took part in combat, there for limited periods of time, I am a leader, an organizer. I'm motivating people in this country. I'm kind of opening the doors and creating the kind of links. So I go off to Afghanistan first time to find out how it is done, how to get involved, come back, having taken part in combat, but only for 2 days or something like that. I come back and then I say, I know how to do it. I can send you there. And that's where the danger is. It's not that I went there, fought, came back and forgot about it. I am a preacher who is enthusing people, totally convinced that this is where our destiny lies, that we are Muslims. If we die, we are martyrs. If we don't, we fought for the truth, for the oppressed people. What can be wrong?
And that's the most powerful recruiter.
Yeah, recruiter, fundraiser, motivator. And of course, things are not all under my control. I go and do a speech to 60-odd youth at, let's say, South Bank Polytechnic in those days. 30 of them might go to some other organization or go from bad to worse or even more virile or virulent organization. But I am responsible for having given them the initial kickstart. So in all sorts of ways, we can't make a separation and say, well, these were the moderates and these were the takfiri extreme ones like Abu Qatada, Abu Hamza. We are part of the whole enterprise, yes. But the situation, the politics supported it. But what we didn't realize, and which made me come out of it in the end, was two things only. One, being more open to considering obvious things, obvious things, and we can talk about those later, obvious things that there is global manipulation going on. We are pieces on a chessboard, as it were.
We are pawns in the system, and we could be used and abused as
we have been used. We are even to this day, whatever the cause, they're tragic causes, and people have to pray for them, raise awareness, send money. It should be through those kind of legal, peaceful means. Even the Uyghur Chinese Muslims, I wouldn't call for an attack on China or volunteer to go and fight and kill Chinese Muslim people because I'm saving the Muslims, because it is all part of global politics. Some of it is true, what we hear, some of it is propaganda. But my second point was, I came out and changed by realizations of those realities, but also Islam. I read more. I stopped being so narrow-minded or so superficial about saying God said, Prophet said. What I may say, but it's wrong perhaps. It may kind of offend a lot of other Muslims. That's not the intention. But I think you as an imam will appreciate that we have to understand Islam from how to interpret revelation. There is a method. There are the rules of Arabic language, for example, is a fundamental and crucial role. There are the principles, the goals, the methods. without knowing all that and the context, we just jump into the source material and say, I read it, God said, Prophet said. That kind of Islam is found by a lot of young Muslims who want things simple. So I learned Islam better and realized, hang on, I'm following sincerely revelation, but in a very ignorant manner, and I should respect learning more. And that process of learning made me less confident about everything.
Yes, and it would, because the more you learn, and especially if you've had a 1400-year scholastic tradition right in front of you of debate, discussion, of scholars, of jurists and people who are given the opinions and whatever they are, and a lot, even their opinions are impacted by the politics of their time, the caliphate of their time, the states of their time. So of course we have to make this much more modern, much more related to our circumstance situation, which I know you are a massive individual who supports this idea, that we need to reflect over this and make it much more our time based, fiqh and etc., and not only talk about what's happened so many centuries ago. And the truth is, because our way of looking at our religion is through the lens of what's in the bygone times, does get us in trouble. I know why that happens, but it does get us in trouble. What are your thoughts on that?
No, thank you for saying so. I was laughing, I was smiling, because this is a very sensitive subject. People can easily misunderstand you, and they think you are asking for a type of modernism which borders on or plunges itself into secularism. And it's not. It's purely saying we have the tools and the techniques, and it's got to be evidence-based. Go back to the Quran and the Sunnah, the evidence, scriptures, and use the tools that our respected scholars have devised over the ages and refined and honed their skills. Use the same methods in a particular school of thought even. If you're Shafi, use the Shafi methodology in your fiqh evaluation. Come up with a modern response that's fitting to us time and climes, as you are saying. But it comes across as if you're saying, you want to modernize at the expense of revelation. It's not.
And if I may throw this in, as a person who is from a tradition like this and who's been brought up in these particular environments,
good.
And I understand what I'm going to say something here, because I understand why these people say that, because we like to have stability, and clarity, right? And what we tend to do is, if we look into our history, in our near past, the Caliphate ended, the Ottoman Caliphate ended, and then of course we were under colonialship and being colonies of the Western powers, being imperialized and etc. That period is a very unstable period in the global concept of Islam. The only time we find stability is when we look beyond that, before that. When we look before that, we see some sort of stability. So this is a very natural thing to do. We have our brothers and sisters within the Salafi tradition, and they say something very important. They say we need to go back to the Salaf. Now there's a reason why they do that, because they see all these nuances, the new concept,
accretions,
accretion as, this is crazy. I can't believe it. I can't deal with this. The only comfortability they find is that, but by doing that is the point that you are making, which I think is a very powerful one, is that 1 minute, but Islam didn't stay like that. It evolved, it changed.
Well, the religion, the fiqh, as you know, the madahib, the schools of thought, the imams devised the answers according to their time and place, the challenges they faced in the cultures they grew up. And that happened in those times. It somehow stopped when we started coming to European countries. And I don't understand that. We do have a so-called Pakistani flavor, or a version, if you want a stronger word, of Islam. Again, generalizing, I know there are sex denominations, but there is a distinct, you can tell it's a Pakistani type Islam than a Bengali type, let alone a Nigerian type or a Chinese type. And I've seen all four types, because my family, half of them are Chinese. So I know Chinese Islam quite well from having a daughter-in-law, son-in-law, and things like that. Plus, I know Nigerian Islam as well because of mixing with the communities. They have, or African Islam. Why can't we have British Islam? Meaning, Islam at its core is going to be, of course,
Or if I hold you there, Mankunan Islam, Liverpool Islam,
Oh,
London
yeah,
Islam.
no, exactly. It's not a facile statement. You make a serious point, actually, because there are regional differences in cultures and customs, isn't it? Especially customs. Something peculiar to Suffolk will not be found in Manchester, perhaps, or Nottingham, the rolling the cheese down the hill kind of thing. We won't do that here, but we'll do something else. And some cultures have died out. Some parts of culture have died out, like the dancing around the maypole and all that.
Yes, but I
Or
did
Morris
find
dancing. I mean, whatever they are, I'm just saying
the
some
tradition.
things are going to be according to the Islamic principles, some things are not. If they are not according to Islamic principles, okay, we stay clear of them. But most things are neutral, meaning we can, whether you wear a suit or a tie, or whether you wear a t-shirt, or whether you wear a jumper, you're wearing clothes. The principle is don't be naked.
Yes.
So if you
Be
want to be
honest.
British, have mashed potatoes or bangers and mash, halal bangers and mash and all that. What's the problem? Or it's died out now in the Cockney culture, pie and mash. Well, why not? And if you want to play piano, why
Yes.
not? Why do you have to play the sitar?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. So I just want to take one exception to what you said, if I may.
Of course.
I thoroughly 100% agree with you about stability and clarity. People like even grown-ups, not just youth, grown-ups like ourselves suffer because we lack the clarity of Islam that should be in our country in time, place, and challenges we meet, or the benefits we have, advantages, and stability we're afraid of. Let's not rock the boat and let's not make an issue. At least try and preserve what little brotherhood and unity and goodness we have. That's good. But the exception is, I think even, and I know to some extent, even before the colonial period, things were not that merry and rosy. And there were divisions and there were great upheavals. Even the caliphal takeovers, and I can talk for a great length from the starting of the Umayyads to the Abbasids to the Ottomans you mentioned. But in between were the Fatimids and the other Umayyads in Spain. And then, of course, the takeover by the Ayyubids and then the Mamluks. The Mamluks were taken over by the Ottomans. But go back even before that to even the Ali and Muawiyah radiallahu anhuma, these kind of. So there were a lot of turmoil, a lot of the free African states, the Indian, the Mughal Empire, and of course, let's not forget our Shia brothers, I would say. And somebody will castigate me for that.
100%. No. That's right.
You might not, but of course, I know somebody would. I was actually called a kafir, non-Muslim, apostatized for saying Shias are Muslims. Okay. My apostasy, whether I'm an apostate or not, that's not the issue. The issue is we are having an exchange of opinions, and you have right to your opinions, if you find whether it's apostasy or not. But yeah, there was the Safavid Empire. The Abbasids modeled themselves on that. But the interfighting, and then in Spain, what happened and how we can't just blame the Christians. But no, we won't talk about how within the Umayyads, they got split up for power and glory, and then some started with the Christians and the Crusaders, and some didn't. And Sunnis like to blame the Shia, and the Shia is not the only ones. We also did the similar things. The Buyids and the Seljuks. You talk about Ertugrul, it's time of the Seljuks. The Seljuks were, who was before that? And what were the Abbasids doing in Baghdad? So it was very nasty before the colonial period. It's history. I just hate the idea of now using skin color and past history to hold people to ransom and talk about compensation. And yes, there are things to be improved, but I'm tired. I'm really tired of talking about. I reacted very sharply to another interview I did about this thing about, white supremacists and the BLM movement. I'm not interested anymore. I'm a human being. I want to live the few short years of our lives as best as we can in a community. And there are genuine grievances. Let's be civilized about it, because I'm not going to be able to kill all the people that I hate or remove them from the globe and live my happy life. I won't be happy without them in the end.
And rightly so, Sidi. And I think you make a very crucial point. And
I talk too much.
No. And a very crucial point and a very significant point that one must know the history.
Yes.
To understand the present.
Yeah.
Our problem is we do not know our history. And this is an issue that we also have in Britain. Now in the last 5 or 6, 10 years, schools are taught about colonialism. They talk about imperialism. They don't only talk about Elizabethan times or Victorian. Do you understand? They talk about that. They talk about slavery. They talk about all of that, which is a good thing. With the Muslim, is also important to discuss all what you have said.
Yes.
And then you say, oh, 1 minute. we get it. You want a simplistic view of Islam, but the
Yes.
truth of the matter is, no concept on earth is simple because they impact humans, and humans are damn complicated creatures, man.
Oh,
Do you know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
So I want to thank you for that. Now I want to and you mentioned Urtugal, of course, that conversation we had offline.
Yes. That's a very popular program.
Yeah, very popular program. But I want to come to that because after this, I want to come to how you and Ivan met and the whole engagement around that. So
Yeah.
one thing I want to touch on, and guys, I know this. I'm sorry, I keep calling you Sheikh, but I'm going to call you Sheikh. It makes it much easier for me. So Sheikh,
I call you Imam as well.
Jazakallah. and Sheikh, look, we spoke about Artugal, and the reason we spoke about Artugal, guys, and our viewers, our listeners, is that I asked the Sheikh a question off air that today in this day and age, and of course we spoke about the Soviet period. Of course, he became a person. He himself became a recruiter, an individual who took people there. He encouraged people to do jihad and to fight for the cause of God, and etc., etc., etc. And sadly, and this is something that I personally feel as well, that a mujahid, the word mujahid, the one who does jihad, all right, the one who goes ahead and engages in that struggle or strive, etc., has become a very negative term. In fact, in some cases, it's used as a slur, it's used as a swear, it's used as the other. And Sheikh, I see on a personal level, I'm an Englishman, I'm from Pakistani background, I am Muslim. My problem is that I don't feel patriotic. I feel, and sadly, I can't have that same feeling of the soldiers and etc. that are this country going fighting what they're doing and etc. and say, yeah, our soldiers and our heroes, and then I'm not even allowed to talk and discuss about our past victories that happened because of my Islamic heritage. Where do I go? And the mujahids, wrongly or rightly, whatever situation is, these mujahids now are jihad, and in our tradition or in any tradition, any nationality, any culture, the soldiers have a very high ranking. They have a position. They are revered. They are honored. They are remembered. We do a D-Day. We do Memorial Day every single year in England. We talk about they mujahids, they warriors. Why are we not allowed to do the same? And why is this term so stigmatized?
What can I say? I mean, I don't know. You could ask Ivan as well of this particular question, because to a non-Muslim who is open-minded and even-handed, any religious word should have kind of sensible meaning, not dark hues about it. So my response would be, immediate gut reaction response would be, well, because we Muslims spoiled it. Because in the name of jihad, instead of actually displaying the qualities of Iman, faith,
Yes.
and living to the standards of Islam, up to a certain point, we can't be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Instead of doing that, because of our grievances, because of maybe valid objections to certain things we see happening around the world, we use the concept of jihad in a manner which is totally unacceptable. And then it went beyond that to criminality and then gross oppression. And I would say, when you come to my age of having been with the Mujahideen, I haven't mixed with a lot of them, but certainly we used to send people to Bosnia and Chechnya. I knew the commander Abu Abdulaziz, the commander of the Bosnian Mujahideen. I used to host him in England. I've corresponded with Ibn al-Khattab in Chechnya, so I'm not that kind of unfamiliar with other theaters of operation. I was in the Burmese war, or the Bangladesh Rohingya, fighting with them. We had our people in Malaysia and the Philippines talking about airdrops and so forth. So I have a very good understanding from direct and indirect experience of the Mujahideen. To be a Mujahid is actually like a knight of valor and courage, who stands up like a knight in shining armor in the old medieval sense, who stands for glory and fame, but not for personal gain, but for chivalrous causes. But it's underlying that is hope for salvation, religion, meaning to please God for forgiveness and so forth. It's a very generous thing to do, to lay down your lives, not just give you my all my money. Totally spoiled, totally hijacked and spoiled. And then we were so bad at counteracting that. So today, I think the need is for us and imams like yourself and others in the mosques to revive this subject and say, look, jihad is not a dirty word, and a mujahid is not a dirty person. And we should be able to self-criticize, like you said about history. It's not just blame others all the time. We have a lot of things as human beings we have committed, not because of Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism. People do these kind of things, look for power or use religion for making money, what have you. Look at us, how we have neglected this subject. So the young person see suffering and they see victims crying out for help, whether a YouTube video or a private Telegram channel, it doesn't matter. And they want to do something Islamic, and they have a distorted, perverted version of Islam regarding that aspect, jihad. So the mujahid is, of course, a very foul, it's a slur. Because the West, come on, when you talk about the Manchester Arena bombing, look at the stories of the victims and what they're talking about, their 13-year-old daughter dying in somebody's arms and so forth. And you're sitting there as an imam in a mosque and you feel you can't say a word because either they will misunderstand you're advocating jihad, or perhaps the youth are saying you are a coward, mealy-mouthed. So they turn to other sources. We need to come out with double kind of fervor, talking about jihad, qital, and of colonial history, everything, but in a balanced way. My last point on this is precisely this. I can talk about how in Britain we are gradually opening up to considerations of British history, which have done some injustices, in whose wake we're still suffering, the aftermath. We're still trying to recover from it and bring about some more justice. Well, no. Why not talk about Muslims and what Muslim countries have done and so forth? Because the last point was this, especially now with the prominence, and rightfully so, of the Black Lives Matter. When we talk about slavery, why is there so much muted kind of conversation about the Muslims' role in it? Even after the British, for whatever reason, ulterior motive or for commercial reasons, they banned it and prohibited it with the Dutch, competition or economically not viable. We have these kind of cynical views. Fine. Why does slavery still carry on in India or in the Maldives or countries like that for 100 years more? And then some of the British action that soldiers did at the behest of the king and the queen of the country was precisely to stop the slave trade and rein in the Muslims from continuing in North Africa. Now, we will not talk about this. Always us or they're always bad, and we were never angels. So that's my point. Be even-handed. You want to criticize colonialism, do so, and you must do so. There are injustices still carrying on because of that after effect. But talk about the benefits as well. Talk to someone like my father, if he was alive, my grandfather, and all those people, and plus talk about how we messed it up and we did the same thing. So did the Chinese and so did everybody else, And we are not doing that. Until that happens, it's a vindictive political way of understanding history. And that's why I'm tired of it. I don't want to know about, I know enough about how much, I've read about 5 books on slavery, which you probably can't see here. Why don't imams read them? It's not about modernizing faith. It's about knowing the issues. You can't talk about homosexuality. You can't talk about slavery. You can't talk about anything all hushed up. And so the poor young Muslim is left to surf the internet, and he finds plenty of material saying, kill him, chop their heads off, and throw him off a cliff. And you say, we should give them prevent. Prevent them from what? Islamic knowledge? The Islamic knowledge needs to be now updated, and that's what you and I were agreeing on before.
And of course, and keeping in mind, and I agree with you 100% around the way we tend to look at history, and it's from a very them and us perspective.
Yeah.
And I think I know one of the things, one of the areas that Ivan always, my man, you always make a very clear point that one of the problem I have, and please share your thoughts on this, that Muslims themselves deny that there are very difficult parts of their background. And in fact, that becomes one of the reasons why people become radicalized on the native white community, probably. What do you say about that?
Yeah, you know I talk about that bit. It's like I remember when I was back in the EDL and like when there was a terror attack back then, the people always on the doorstep of a mosque. Do you know what I mean? I don't know the repercussions of that, but do they go in the other communities? You never see them stood outside a church or maybe a pub because that's where most white people go. Do you know what I mean? But or outside a Gurda for the Sikhs, you know, it's always outside a mosque. Do you know what I mean? And then people are saying that, like for instance, example, Lee Rigby's killing. After that happened, everybody's saying he's not Muslim, he's not this. He was reading your scriptures live on TV after he'd done that murder. Do you know what I mean? How can you deny that he wasn't? Do you know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
And
I strongly make a point on this. I usually make a point on it and make it very clear. I go, by saying they're not Muslims, you are washing your hands of responsibility. That's a problem. To create a change and to create that, genuine impact on an individual, you have to acknowledge that person is ours. Let's deal with him. Even if they've done wrong, if they've committed something wrong, bring them in, engage with them at that level. And Sheikh, what you said is a crucial point, that by looking into history, I know I've read a lot on the abolitionists of slavery. Now, these were white Christians, majority of them. There were, of course, people from other communities as well, but the majority of them were white Christians and British. Now, when we don't talk about that these are the people who help to destabilize or bring down this very essential, important part of the British economy or the global economy, we forget about that. We don't talk about that. We don't discuss that. And I'm with you on this particular point, that acknowledge the good in the other so they may acknowledge the good in you. Right? And I think we call this, within our trainings as well, we do something called on selectivism. Sheikh. Okay. And we do this a lot. And I know myself, Ivan, Irfan, and etc. We talk about this a lot, that within the Muslim community or the Islamists, they do the same. Selectivism would mean that we tend to pick and choose what works according to our narratives, right? And sadly, by doing that, what we are doing is alienating certain parts of society, and that, of course, ultimately creates this sense of hate and distance and this gash between different communities. Coming to and this has been a fascinating conversation. And Sheikh, are you still okay with this? Are you fine? Are you good?
I'm fine.
Brilliant. Now,
I just need to rein in myself a little bit.
No, you're okay. You're doing well, sir. You're doing well. And this is important because and I always say this, because we're talking about our religion, we're talking about our faith, we're talking about our cultures. And I always say this. I go, look, these are very important aspects and elements in our existence. If we are not going to talk about it in the way we do, then people don't take it seriously. And emotion and feeling is essential in expression, in discussion, and people react accordingly to that. So I want to bring this to you two. And I want to bring that because both of you have had an impact on each other. I know Ivan, when he talks about you, he only talks about from the perspective how much impact you have had on him, right? But I know fully and completely that you always, as in a few times I've heard you, and especially when I've asked you directly, you talk about that side as well. So I want to know when both of you met, how that came into existence, and how that flourished into this beautiful relationship, which today is a very powerful presence of both of you men on this platform and many other platforms. So if I may put that to you first.
Well, who's going first?
Let's make Ivan go first, because I know it does start from there, really, doesn't it?
All right. If I remember rightly, I think Manwar was already speaking to one of my Ipswich division members called Shane.
Yeah, Shane.
He kind of heard who I was already, so that made things a bit easier. But then I remember going over. It was just after you bought the church, I think, and we heard it was going to be a super mosque. So I went over to challenge him, not expecting Manwar to say, "It's just everyone."
Hello,
I
Ivan.
must tell you. So I didn't. So I said to him, "Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Am I on? Yeah, yeah." So I remember asking Manwar to prove it to me, and then I remember him saying, "Well, that's easy. I've got a council meeting in a couple of weeks' time. You and some of your EDL lads can come to that meeting," which we did. We turned. Then Manwar introduced us as English Defence League members in front of police, the council, and I think there's quite a few other nationalities of the town. So it felt quite awkward, but it was a long meeting. I'm not going to lie, it was a bit boring. But at the end of it, Manwar was telling us the truth. Do you know what I mean? So because he told us the truth, I wanted to talk more then. Do you know what I mean?
So the initial interaction between yourselves was around
and that was it.
So you went to the mosque. You saw the mosque as a super, this super complex of people coming in. He's bought this in Ipswich, isn't it? So you bought it there, and you came across. So, Sheikh, what was your reaction?
Yeah.
Well, no, as Ivan said, I mean, I kind of wanted to be in touch with the English Defence League. I didn't know any of them. I had two motives. One was, of course, by the time I wanted to meet the EDL, I already had certain observations, our own so-called home truths. So part of it is what we discussed anyway. So I'm aware of like some immigration issues, lack of integration issues, some of the things that we have talked about already. And there's a failure of recognizing, how we are fortunate, or if I can use a kind of like coarse word, lucky to be British or to be in Britain.
Very.
I think I'm very privileged. So these kind of things, we know our backgrounds, where our fathers, grandfathers came from, what the countries are about, what happens there, whether it's corruption or economy and so on. But there's a lack of gratitude and thankfulness and you said patriotism, but a lack of sense of belonging, let's say. And so against that, then you have the terrorism thing going on. So I wanted to meet the EDL because I was already sympathetic, saying, well, they might be carrying things a bit too far and maybe being coarse or harsh or judgmental, but they're not all dismissible. I mean, they're not saying things just for the sake of just saying things bad and riling people up. They have observations which are unmet and they can't get satisfactory discussion. So I said, I'm willing to engage in that. And they'll be surprised just how much I actually agree with them, except I don't wave the British flag with them. I could have gone on EDL marches before I met Ivan, but I didn't because of, again, what will people say and what will they think? And I'll be used as another poster boy by the EDL, perhaps. Yes. So I already had mixed feelings and I wanted to. So after a period of time of cultivating a relationship to understand, and Shane and the lady who's to come proved very helpful, it kind of opened my eyes and removed some of my fears or inhibitions. In fact, I commented to Ivan a long time ago that lady actually is very intelligent and seemed to be very well educated. I've forgotten her name, I'm afraid. So I was like, actually, they do have people. Tracy, that's it. They do have people amongst them who are not all football thugs and drunkards, There are people who can reason. So as a human being, and she was very nice, and Shane was nice as well. And Shane actually came with Ivan later on to help us out at the church and so on. So after that period of time, finally Ivan came, the council meeting and all that he mentioned. But the real eye-opener was when he turned up, 7 of them, to the Ramadan party that I did, right, which every Ramadan I used to host at the town hall. And there were about 400 people. And about 30, 40 non-Muslims had I think it was 60 or 70 non-Muslims had fasted in sympathy with the Muslims. And one non-Muslim actually fasted all of Ramadan. And this is about 10 years ago, So by that, this is like a new thing. When the EDL comes and the quiz, we have a quiz, chocolates, prize giving and, whatever, a big meal afterwards, and just converse and talk. And that's all there is to the agenda, to get people to mingle and mix. In the quiz, Ivan's group did the best.
What?
But that wasn't the issue. The issue wasn't that. The issue, sorry, Imam Imran.
No. I'm just holding you right there. You just said that these seven EDL members
right,
did better than
I don't know who answered the questions. Might have been just one of them or two of them, but they did good. They were
Wow.
well behaved. We took pictures with some of us. Some of them are like black people. Let's say myself, Black Mus Ivan, together, all arms and laughing and so on. But the point is, so many people came to me and said, "Oh, the EDL is here." I said, "Yeah, I know," because the Muslims are scared. Just the name EDL made them feel, "Oh no, we better watch out." Put on a guards and do something. I said, "Just relax, just be normal.
No,
Nothing's different."
no, Sheikh, but think about it for a second. They don't really help themselves, do they?
Sorry.
They don't really help themselves. On media,
Yeah.
sadly, you get these Muslimic Sharia people,
Yeah.
and then you see people going into town, but breaking into shops, screaming, shouting, "Muslims, the infidels, this, we are infidels, we can do whatever we want," drinking and shouting and screaming and blah blah blah. Yeah, Sheikh, what do you? They can't. People can't have a positive image of, can they?
Yeah, it was natural. Yeah, I do concede on that. Yeah, some of the mosque protest with the pig's head and this and that, or the drunken behavior. I mean, it's like the counterpart, but not as bad. Like so-called Muslim terrorist, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
so
but the
yeah,
thing
the
is,
reaction evokes. Yeah, I
and the thing
understand
is,
that.
the way you, that's what I mean. It's very, at that time, it's very revolutionary. It was like, it's very daring, right? So what you, in your world, from your experience, that was very, you invited these people, individuals, because you were open now for conversation. And Sheikh, sadly, the rest of the world wasn't, and many still
Alhamdulillah.
aren't.
Yeah,
No, wasn't and still aren't, sadly. But they are getting
but
there.
they've
They are,
improved.
Ivan, you know what I mean? Because Ivan, think about it. You guys turned up, seven of you lads, into a majority Muslim environment, being invited by, of course, the main, the host himself. How was it for you? Okay, you had your samosas and kebabs and all that. That's cool.
To be
There were no
fair, right?
kebabs.
Yeah. Right, to be fair, right, I just thinking back to that day. It was kind of a little bit intimidating for us as well, because their perception of us, we probably had the same perception of them. But there was one thing before we did the quiz, and I'm a bit embarrassed by it now, but at the time it was funny. Do you know what I mean? I remember a balloon going pop because we had balloons on the tables, and me and a couple of others put our head under the table for a lot, just joking, and then we got up saying, "Are we safe?" Well, so we didn't really help ourselves. Do you know what I mean? But once we did the quiz, honestly, once we done the quiz, and people found out that we got like the highest score there, it broke down so many barriers that quiz did. Do you know what I mean? People wanted to speak to us then. So
Yeah.
swings and roundabouts. Do you know what I mean? I think it was good to prove ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you, Ivan. I think what's important is that for us to understand, at the end of the day, do we want to get on and have a different way of life, which is more accommodating of differences and actually release the tension a bit? Because it takes time to remove suspicions built over a period of, what we have perceived on the media to each other, and the name calling, the mockery. It goes on all sides. So you have to overcome that. And some of it is part of banter. So it is not a problem. So our one community and conversations were always open to. We did 4 or 5 per year. So it's about 30 of those, which is, come and express yourself. If you want to swear, have a shout, it's fine, because you just want to express yourself. So it's part of banter. You want to call me, if you want to use the P word against me, I wouldn't take offense, because I'm mentally prepared that the person might be disposed that way, but we are trying to break down barriers and overcome that to have a conversation, at least ease the tension. So both sides were prepared, I think, to put up with each other's bad behavior, let's say.
No, but see, Sheikh, what you just said there. See, I never impose my sensibilities or on the larger community.
Good.
Because
good.
the thing is, no, there's a reason I'm sharing this with you. Because someone from your background, someone who does what I do, what Irfan does, what certain other imams do, people from different communities or men and women who do, in a lot of ways, we have chosen and become much more, how do they say, more harder skinned, thick skinned in dealing with different issues.
Right.
But see, I'm very careful in imposing what I think
Yes.
on those Muslims or those ethnic communities which have not been exposed to that, whose skin
Yes.
is not as thick.
Yes.
See, I have to be very careful.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And this is why I always say, I go, look, even the nature of where I work, environments I work in, I come across very extreme situations, and
Yes.
a lot of people in that position say to me, "How the hell do you deal with that?" I go, look, I've done this for this many years. When I started, it wasn't damn easy. I battled with myself. Do you know what I mean? And I know of yourself as well. It wasn't that straightforward. And this is why I chose, myself and Ivan, we chose to take you down this, a story of your life, of where you were, what you did, where you came, what happened, how it happened. Because what that does is that it gives us a holistic understanding of the man and why he's saying and doing what he's doing and saying today. And that's what the power of people, we tend to, remove that. But that has made you who you are, sir. So from here, both of you did. Now we acknowledge, we understood, not all EDL members are thick. To this day, we realized that it opened up. There's a bit of a conversation, discussion that took place. All right, there's a particular type of environment of harmony started to be created. Now, then you guys went out and did something which brought a lot of stress, especially upon you, Chick. And I want you both of you to talk about how that came into existence. Why did you do that? And what went through your mind at that particular time, please?
So Ivan first.
Yes, please. Go for it.
Right. The reason, that it was
Tell our viewers what
because
happened.
Tommy said at the time, after Lee Rigby was killed, that the EDL was going to have a load of silent marches all over the UK. So I was designated to sort out some in East Anglia. And it was just by chance that I think it was because after Lee Rigby was killed, I think it was probably the day after, Manwar and Khalil both rang me up at different times to explain things to me a bit better than the impression I had, if you know what I mean, which was the hate. And because of that, I said to Manwar, we're thinking about doing a silent march in Ipswich, which that you'd consider was not because of any agendas. It was just simply to prove that, because I've been speaking to Manwar for quite a while up until then, I understood that the positive that could come out of that.
Yes.
Of seeing two opposing sides coming together. And when Manwar agreed to it, I was blown away. Do you know what I mean? But on the day was awesome. I can't say enough about that day. It was a bit nerve-wracking, I must admit. Because I remember it was getting near 11 o'clock the start time, and Manwar, it was just us like, he's not going to turn up. But then we see this little Muslim girl come around the corner with this big box of roses.
Oh, wow.
You know what? I think Manwar's little daughter nearly de-radicalised all of us that day with roses. Do you know what I mean? She was just the cutest little girl. Do you know what I mean? And then Manwar come around the corner with his family and some other members of the Muslim community. It was probably one of my proudest moments, because I guess to pull something off like that, or to do something like that together, was different back then. Do you know what I mean? Never done it or tried to do it, but yeah, it was good. It was peaceful. People were even clapping us as we went through the marketplace. Yeah, it was just a great day. Do you know what I mean? But there's always a but on these things whenever.
Yeah, no, but we'll come to the but in a second. But I think so. Now, from Ivan's side, you've heard it, that when they saw your daughter coming with that bouquet of flowers and the chocolates or whatever it was, and they said, okay, fine, they turned up. So now you were coming from the other side. Before that, where was your head?
My head was fully prepared. I was fully primed. I would have perhaps even asked for an independent kind of demonstration or protest march, or whatever you want to call it, appropriate, by myself, get my colleagues together with or without the EDL. But the idea was, look, we can come get over the divides, the racism or whatever, the anti-Islam or anti-whatever we used to imagine about the EDL. Because something binds us. We are British. We are part of this country and we want to live together. And we are, both sides, all of us are mortified by that, the way that that person was, the Lee Rigby was murdered. And on top of that, in the name of Islam, in such a cruel, violent way. So it's just to express that, if you we use that word patriotism, and also a sense of frustration against the, almost like in defiance of the then Muslim community, especially the imams. I'm sorry to say that your lack of leadership and providing guidance, and you're always just complaining against EDL and condemning them, but you're not doing anything constructive. I saw one or two characters on Twitter and so on who are taking the kind of like pride in the fact that he took a picture with Tommy Robinson or something. And I said, this is what we do. We just pose all the time. We don't do real stuff. We just want the press kind of attention. So cynical or not, I mean, there were some factors which all came together. So Ivan rang me up and I said, yes, of course, without any hesitation.
Right.
Then I rang a whole lot of people up. Quite a lot of people who I thought would be more responsive, and they weren't. But in the end, of course, we managed, because I said, even if I'm going on my own, I told my wife, we are going on our own if nobody comes, because perhaps of wisdom, like you said, sometimes you have to be wise. And I think you talked about actually what you mentioned before, wisdom, because you can't lose what little traction you have by doing something so out on a limb. Then what was the benefit? And these stories are in the Quran as well. So
Yeah.
I perfectly understand that. So I said to some of my close friends, if you don't want to come, I will go on my own. But on that day, we had Libyans, we had Kurdish, we had Bengali youth, were carrying the Union Jack, and, of course, my daughter and us and all that. And so there were 17, 18 of us. It was such a good experience. And I remember the look on the police. I don't know if he spoke to you, Ivan. Matt Rose, wasn't it? So he comes up to me. Matt, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Rose, yeah.
So he comes to me and say, are you all right? And he got a bemused look on his face. And I said, what do you mean? And the UAF turned up, United Against Fascists. No, bless them. God bless them. I mean, they are there for a purpose. They're trying to defend and protect and whatever, protest against the fascists and so on. But why do we have to be always like this? We are the UAF, you are the EDL, this is the BNP, and these are the Muslims. I mean, we are one people. We're different religions, and we have grievances and misunderstanding. I mean, I will never convince Ivan about some things. He will never convince me about some things. But we have more than enough, to get on together, get on well together, and serve our country and people, and then meet our Lord or not.
See, you someone naturally would say, and probably people say you're an idealist. You want to be an individual who wants a perfect society.
No.
But what you are saying is what the Quran is saying. That we made you from a single man, we made you a single woman, we made you into nations, so that you recognize it, to recognize each other.
Yeah.
And it's not about hurting, harming, it's not about belittling, it's not about bullying. That's what our tradition stands on. But at the same time, as we know about social psychology, we talk about human sociology, we talk about how people feel comfortable around people who are from similar cultural background or similar ethnic background. We talk about human behavior. Now, of course, there are interactions, there are overlap, there's no doubt about that. But there is an acknowledgement, understanding from that perspective as well, that this is human behavior. When you're in a group, for example, if you go to a new school, someone goes into a new school, a young person goes to a new school, and the first people they tend to get drawn towards are people who are from a similar language, probably, from a similar culture, probably. And that's or for example, they go into a community, a school or a place which is alien to them, to people who have a similar experience as them. So in a way, this is very normal. But over time, look, I'm third generation now.
Yeah, mashallah.
Now I'm third generation. My daughter's fourth generation.
Yeah.
Come on, for God's sake, get out of that bubble, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? But like you said, it has to take men like you, right? Women like your wife, individuals like your kids, to be daring enough to say, 1 minute, what we're going to do now probably is going to go down a bit negative. But guess what? We want to do the right thing. And that's the beautiful thing. When I look into the life of the Prophet ﷺ, when I look into the lives of the greats of all communities, they have been daring people. they push the boat further than everybody else. And I think you're right to say we need to create an environment of people who do that. And I think both of you are doing that, and you're a prime example to follow. I do really think that.
Yeah, I was going to say the only difference is, and from a religious point of view, the Prophet was, peace be on him, guided, we believe, guided by God, and protected from making very costly mistakes. So individual mistakes he made, he was forgiven. But when I think I'm doing the right thing, I still have to be humble enough to say, well, that's why if you don't want to come on the march, you can stay at home. I will go on my own. So we're doing risky things, taking like a pot shot, as it were. But it's not the right thing is, because I have to be a bit more open and say that others may be justified in their other views as well. But it's time that tells, isn't it? You look back. I'll give you a very short example. I ended up doing Hajj, the pilgrimage, with the people who were part of the group who killed my brother.
Wow.
Yeah. So now he didn't kill my brother individually. He's not the person, I'm not my brother. I'm still alive. But the thing is about generalizing. He belonged to Awami League, Mujibur Rahman's group. And we are their mortal enemies because my father's side is pro-Pakistan. They are pro-independence. So for us, you're the Hindu nationalist lovers and so on. To them, we hate the country and we are licking the boots of the Pakistanis and so on. We are like fifth columnist. But in the end, those who wanted Islam didn't get what they wanted 30 years later. Those who killed Mujib, the so-called father of the nation, and his entire family except his daughter, they are still in power. And those people who killed my brother on the side of Mujib ended up doing Hajj with me 20 years later, becoming better Muslims. So in the end, what was the point of it all?
Yes.
They are still in power. You didn't get the Islam you wanted. And those whom you castigated, they are better Muslims now. And that's 20 years later. We don't have the patience. So I'm saying it's a good thing it happened when Ivan is in a mature age, much more than 20, 30-year-olds. I did it when I was 45, 50 years old, 50. So we come up on an age where we understand hindsight and saying we do a lot of stuff and we are sincere.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's the point of it? Because in the end, time evens it out. And you find it was just such a waste.
No, it is.
We're trying to cut that out.
In hindsight, you're right. But
that's what we're trying to cut out.
That's what we're trying to cut out. Problem is, people won't learn. We say to our kids, learn from my mistakes.
Yeah,
learn from my mistakes. Like, no, they got to make their own mistakes.
Yeah.
What we can do, and maybe both of you can shed some light on this, is at least put things into place where it might influence their decision. Maybe the action that they engage might not be as impactful or harmful. Maybe we can do that. But to tell a young person, hey, I'm telling you, don't do it. Been there, done that. They're like, who the hell are you, you old man? What the hell do you know? Do you know what I mean? So we are playing with that. It is a difficult thing, with all different cultures and backgrounds as well. Okay. Now, but at the same time, what the point that you made, which is very interesting, is that I look at the life of Hazrat Abu Sufyan. Now, for 20 years, he fought against the Prophet, peace be upon him. At the end of it, he became, right? It's unbelievable that someone that became so close to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now, we're not saying that he didn't fight him. We're not saying he didn't have hate for him. He had all of that. And there was others who died through battles and whatever. But I give his example because it fits so well here. You may have trial with that person. You may have conflict with that person. You may have disagreement with that person. And it takes time for that person to get to a place, 1 minute. I've been battling this person continuously, but this person has been steadfast with me. So I'm looking from the other side now, Sheikh. And sometimes I believe it is important to go through that.
No, I can't dispute that. I mean, it's just that people have to learn through the mistakes.
Yes.
But the mistakes, if the price is too high, then we have a duty to try and protect them from making that mistake.
Or at least inform them.
Or equip them to take the risk responsibly. So if somebody's going mountain climbing and he can fall off and die, it's snowy conditions or haven't got the right gear, then of course I'll try to buy the equipment and give the training and so forth, and say, well, I won't take the risk. And if you must, well, let me at least equip you for it.
Yes.
So we often don't do that. That's what my gripe is about this so-called terrorism and extremism. Gripe against myself and perhaps against you by default, because we are imams in a manner of speaking. So we don't guide. So we leave them to it. We moan and say they're extreme and there's this and that. Same with so-called far-right white supremacists and so on. Most of them are not bad. For your information, I mean, I see a person who's from National Action, the prohibited group. Well, he's a Muslim now. Alhamdulillah. Not that that's a big deal to many people, but the point is, there he was, hardcore, a terrorist, is convicted of terrorism. And in Belmarsh, he becomes a Muslim. So God guided him, I will say. But on the other hand, of course, he did speak to people. He did come across Islam in the sense that he saw brotherhood, he saw food sharing, he saw an imam speaking to him and saying, well, out of curiosity, I'll sit in the Quran class in prison and listen to it. The imam could be thoroughly incompetent even. But the point is, he was in touch with Muslims. And God guided him through certain avenues.
We fear.
So you're perfectly right. We have our St. Paul's as well, as you were saying. We have all this kind of. But ultimately, if a person is going down the wrong path, as a parent, and you would know, because you're married and so on, or your children, you allow kids to learn from mistakes, but you shepherd it, don't you? You kind of create the right environment or the safe conditions, or you guide, and you try not to kill their curiosities and tell them off for making mistakes. But some mistakes are too costly. Somebody goes and bombs somebody or stabs someone. You can't just say, well, try it out and see how you feel. Don't you feel regret now? I have to stop him from going out and stabbing someone. So that's how I take. My priority is as a Muslim and as a human being to prevent or protect harm. See, and that's a fundamental thing. That's it.
It is a fundamental. I think that this is a whole area which, inshallah, after this experience, that you would accept to maybe later on as well, to talk about exactly this point of responsibility of guardians and parents, and what can they do and how they can do in the context of modern society as being Muslim, ethnic minorities. And so I think it's that whole area of discussion. But I want to come to this point of discussion at the moment, because it's been a fascinating journey through your lives, gentlemen. And I am well equipped and well aware of my man Ivan's life, what he's been through, how he's been through things, the ups and downs, the difficulties. And today I've had the honor to hear directly from your mouth, sir, your life, your background, your experience. I'm going to say, I went out, I learned, I heard a lot of stuff, I read a lot of stuff on you, as much as I could. But it's something different when you talk to someone directly, you understand, and take it from their heart and their mind. You can understand the emotions and the feelings and where they're coming from. But there's one thing which hit me really, really, really deeply. And it's what my man Ivan said. Okay, he sees you as his father. And for me, Sheikh, just want to say, for me, this was like, wow. Like, this is like full circle type of thing going on here. Do you understand? What is this? How is this? And Ivan, I want you to please share this with us, and then I'm going to ask a few words from the Sheikh to share as well. If you don't mind, Sheikh, is that okay?
Yeah.
Please. Ivan?
See, I feel awkward next. I'm going to make Manwar feel awkward. So I'll just... Yeah, okay, because I think... it's because I think I lost my dad to terminal cancer 9 years ago. And I was a bit lost. I still am sometimes, do you know what I mean? But Manwar's been there in the background, guiding me, teaching me. He's helped me in a lot of things over the last, 8-9 years, do you know what I mean? And he's the first person I'll call if I need anything, do you know what I mean? We just got that kind of friendship, I think. I call him a father figure, but he's not that much older than me, really, only a few years, do you know what I mean? But I think he's been an important part of my life. He's been somebody who's guided me where perhaps I need that bit of guidance. And that's kind of, and I guess Manwar taught me the importance of children. Do you know what I mean? Seeing people as a human being and not a label, which is why. Pardon? Say again?
No worries, go for it. No problem.
What did you say, man? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think teaching me to treat people like a human being, be emphatic. Do you know what I mean? I understand the importance of putting people rather than labeling them because of my experience, and that's why people do think that I'm up for the far right sometimes, but I'm not like that. I understand that not everybody in the far right is far right. There's lots of people there with vulnerabilities that they just need answers to be heard or to be given the right answers and not some rubbish head getting up online. So that's why I speak for people unheard, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what and guided me. And I've had lots of issues with lots of different things over the years. Immigration was a big one. Manwar taught me different on that. Another quick event we've done was the Syrian refugees in Ipswich. I got to meet some lovely families, not just the families, but the kids that day. Listen to their stories. It gave me a better understanding. So that's what I mean by guidance. And he's educated me on life. Some of the things that probably my dad, if he'd have been here, wouldn't have been able to do because he come from my background. Do you know what I mean? Manwar's been able to teach me about the other, which has been most important in my life, I think.
Thank you, Ivan. What are your Sheikh, from your perspective of?
Well, thank you very much for acknowledging all that, Ivan. It's very generous and kind of you. It shows a type of nobility you always had and honesty about you and humility as well, which I detected even in your EDL days. There's certain softness and humility in your character, and I thought you would turn back from a path of hatefulness of others anyway, regardless of me being on the scenario. Well, I was going to say that, this father figure thing is a double-edged sword. In one way, it kind of like lops off the unwanted and undesirable aspects of a person's life. On the other hand, if the person is not mature enough and, say, a young, vulnerable kid, he can be almost mesmerized by the overt support that I might show as a father figure, let's say. A 16-year-old sitting there in my class and I'm being kind and buying him gifts and so on. I'm not grooming or anything, just naturally being kind. But it could be that he hasn't learnt enough and become so in awe of me or respectful of me that actually stunt his independence of thought and finding goodness in others and just saying, oh, whatever Manwar says kind of thing. It's a double-edged sword. And the second observation would be about compassion. It's what Ivan hit the nail on the head, that I want to be treated as a human being, and I would like to see everyone else as a human being. And whether people are intelligent and also gifted in the intellect, because we all can connect at the level of conscience and natural instinct, fitra, for example. So even the die-hard, I believe the die-hard kind of like, I want to meet Paul Golding, for example. I actually went and met Tommy Robinson. And it was a very nice meeting as well. That meeting was about 3-4 hours. Mm-hmm. But in the end, some people have other factors in life which misleads them or takes them away and you drift. But that's what it is. Treat others as human beings because I'm a human being. And ultimately, I'm not God. And I believe in God's mercy. And God will know why someone didn't or did become a Muslim and what they did with it. This kind of thing. So that's all I would say. Father figure is nothing but perhaps common compassionate practices. But, without taking it too far, the love in our hearts for each other, and I use the word love deliberately,
yes,
is something which God grants, like faith. That's for me as a religious person. It might be all superstitious and gobbledygook stuff, but, I believe we are created with the instinctual ability to recognize certain things by default without speaking, some kind of attraction and so forth. But love is something that's bestowed. And so if Ivan and I have this platonic type of love, that in ancient times, people were more comfortable speaking about this. There was no kind of evil connotations of homosexuality and homoeroticism and all that. So if that kind of love is there, at whatever degree, it's a God-given gift.
It is.
And through Ivan, God is guiding me to be a better person. I'm convinced of that.
Yes.
And maybe likewise to him, maybe. But this is how the whole world works. All of creation works. It's kind of mystical nonsense, let's say. But that's how I give some color to my life.
No, but I see. What you just said there. Look, I have had the opportunity to be part of many different cultural subcultures, and one of the things I've seen with people who take drugs or who want to let go of this world, or who want to do meditation, or who want to have a spiritual experience, who have a a long weekend in the mountains somewhere.
Yeah.
And one thing that keeps them coming back from their journals or from their writings or from their, especially nowadays we have clips that they share online, is I love this. I want to get away. I want to reattach myself with nature, with other human beings. And the word love, and you hit the nail on the head by using the word love. And love is a very, a hubba lillah wal bughza lillah. We love for God, we hate for God. That's our tradition. And the love of God is the, God Almighty says that I love my, this is tradition, I love my servant 70 times more than the mother loves his or her son. Her son. Now, or child. I always ask the question is, how much does your mom love you? I have not got a single answer ever. They don't know how much mom loves them. And if one does not know how much our mom loves her, then how the hell can we comprehend, from our perspective at least, how the Lord can do that? And you're right. And I think with your relationship between yourself and Ivan, and I wanted to come to this, right, on a conclusive basis, because it's easy to say, we came across, our paths, collided, we came together, we did a few things together, and that's it. It's very superficial. This is much more than that. Them interactions that take place, them collidings that take place, them experiences, it develops more than just an interaction for superficial purposes. You didn't do it to show the world, oh, we are standing together and we are strong. You didn't do it that you wanted some personal praise. In fact, you got negativity out of it. You got hate out of it. You got people who looked at you in a very down, false, wrong way, that they had observed you and seen you, but you took that on board. And this is why I wanted to come to this, because I want people to know, guys, when you make a decision to do the right thing, you will start to like, honor, respect, and love the other, regardless of where you started from. Gentlemen, I want to leave with you to say a few words from your perspective, final words of reflection and thought, hopefully, because I know we have taken a lot of time. I know, Sheikh, you said no problem. I know that. But
enough now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I will leave the final words to your both of you. I mean, if you want to say something first, and then we'll leave the final words to Sheikh Manwar Ali to let us finish our discussion of today.
I think the only thing I'm going to leave us with is, if anything about mine and Manwar's story, it's what we in our many workshops. We can have differences, but it's about how you respect them differences. And I think that's the ultimate thing between our relationship is respect. Do you know what I mean? We respect our differences. Like me and you, man, we've got lots of differences that we'll never agree. We're still good mates. We still have a laugh. We still get on. Do you know what I mean? So we need to rediscover the word respect and bring it back to life again properly.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. So I will complement that by saying humility. So respect and have self-humility. So yeah, we should act on our conviction. We should take time to learn and deepen our knowledge, broaden our perspectives, our horizons, and all that, which goes without saying. But in the end, no matter how much we learn and do, a bit of humility, because part of respect is to have the humbleness to realize others are not perhaps, they might appear to be because of the way they speak or how they sound, but they're not thick, because we do connect at that conscience and instinct level. So it doesn't matter who you are, and engage in dialogue, try to speak, and then consider the issues very deeply with research, with scientific knowledge, or proper study if you can, and learn from the experts about those secular subjects. Yeah, thank you.
Sheikh, I want to say from the depth of my heart, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
We could work on many aspects surgically on you, and your nuances, your way of looking, reflection, ponderance, your knowledge, your experience, and even the way you interact with people who have immense hate for other human beings, and how do you dismantle that? How do you? There's all these other areas of discussion and conversation, and I hope that this interaction that has taken place, inshallah ta'ala, will become the basis of, hopefully, I'm putting it out there, some future opportunities as well with you, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah khairan. May the Lord Almighty keep you strong. May the Lord Almighty keep your family protected, your children protected, and you protected. We are grateful to the Lord that He has created certain individuals in our lives that we can go back to when we are in times of trial and difficulty. Jazakallah khair. Ivan, my man, God bless you, my man. You look after yourself and everybody else that's watching at this moment in time. Take care of yourself. Thank you very much. You've been listening to myself, Imran, Ivan, and our big man, Sheikh Manwar Ali. Thank you very much, guys. We're signing out till next time. Goodbye and good night.